I'll just introduce you. Well then, guys, welcome to the Angry Plumber's second podcast, and we're kickstarting with a little, he's not a little celebrity, he is a celebrity, and he's just been winding me up about my favourite car. Is it Richie or Rich Jones?
How we doing, mate? You okay?
Welcome, thank you, bud, and thanks for joining us.
Mate. No worries. I'm glad we're on, because the first time we met, you were giving me some right shit on TikTok, and it kind of, we were talking about like, and I thought, yeah, check this guy. I thought, what have I done wrong here? But I realized it's your persona, on TikTok, and what people didn't realize in the back behind the scenes, me and you were chatting on messaging, weren't we?
Yeah.
And we said, let's stoke the fire a little bit. And like, I just kind of like been watching your sort of your channel, and I realized that you got this kind of wild out there, but no one else could do it the same way, because of your accent and how you come across. It just comes across brilliantly, but I love it because it rubs people up, which shouldn't normally get rubbed up the wrong way. So I dare say you're dealing with bands like I am constantly. I'm banned at the minute.
I'm banned as well.
Oh, yeah.
I messaged you before this to say there's the code in that, and it come up. I was banned and you were banned.
I know. Currently banned. I can't receive messages. I'm almost on the backup account now, but it's it's like when you first get banned, you think, oh no, all that hard work. When you get banned now, you think, well, it's just a bit of time off, isn't it? Have a little bit of a rest now and chill out.
It does get a bit time consuming replying to people and the comments. Like you get a lot of comments. Like everybody's really interested in your story and what you've done and where you're going. So your time must be filled with the day.
Mate, it kills me because it's just because I suffer with, like, I don't think I suffer with OCD, but I think I suffer this kind of like FOMO. I hate the thought of missing out, but also I don't like the thought of letting people down. Yeah. And I think if someone, I'm not saying all comments, but if someone takes the time to leave a respectful or a decent comment, which I think that's a decent comment, I owe them the opportunity to at least reply to that with the best of my knowledge. It might mean I just don't know, mate. I'm sorry, but sometimes I go through and I wake up in the morning with like a few hundred replies thinking, so I'm waking up at 5, 6 o'clock, getting my phone. I'm like trying to focus on the phone and think, right, what we got, and I can't even see the keyboard. And I'm thinking, right, let's start doing it. And the ones that I can't do a video to because I'm in bed, I'll literally save that comment, stick it in my calendar for like replies. And when I've got a spare moment at work, I'll look it up. Yeah. I'll read it. I'll do a fresh post, reply to that comment, and I'll tag the person in that video as well. And I thought each one's taking like maybe just be 2 or 3 minutes. It might be longer than that, might be less. But and then you got to hashtag it, and I thought, wow, this is a full-time job, and I'm not getting paid, but that's not what it's about. It's about my message, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you think the message is getting out there? Because
it is.
No, is it?
Yeah. Do you know what a lot of people won't realize on TikTok? They just see the face, that they see this 1 minute or 3 minute clip, don't they, of what's going on. They don't see what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah. And honestly, as a result of that app, and I've been on there probably about nearly a year now, I think I started it winter last year. And I've had messages from people who've got problems with addiction, asking for support. I've got messages from people who are going to court, naturally quite concerned about what's going to happen next. I can't advise you legally, but I can certainly tell you what it's like for me and from my perspective, what to roughly expect. I've had youth offending teams get hold of me to be a mentor for kids who are getting in trouble. And that's rewarding for me because I've got kids who are one of them is of that age, and if I can put something back, and it might sound cliche, but it is quite nice that you can help people out. And people take a full U-turns on decisions if they made a decision to say, well, they want to get involved in drugs, and suddenly said, no, your posts have really put me off getting involved in that life. I thought, well, that's what they're there for.
And also as well, your background, you can see every one of your backgrounds has got your book. So is it? Yeah. Have you seen it? Not to go into like your personal life or that, but have you seen an increase in sales and an increase in your message getting on the book? Because I see there's going to be a series of books.
Yeah, that's right. Did you know what the initial thing about TikTok, because I've set a business account, I've got to be honest, it's for me, it's a business, but it's business on supporting people, but it's also to sell books to create awareness. And I keep an eye on the Amazon ranking, because you can see it changes once every hour, and the algorithm kicks in and it updates with sales. Now, if I'd been flat out on TikTok with the green screen, and I'm like the last few days when I did that thing about Wayne Couzens and nines, oh God, the stuff I got from the crap I got from some of the Nines fans about me even suggesting he might have been a grass was like, yeah, my man's not a grass. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, here's the guidelines. Yeah. The book sales jumped massively. It went from like, say, it always sits within the top 100 of the chart where it's visible, floating around, and it went up to like the top 20.
Oh, brilliant.
Which is where it normally is. If I'm really busy on TikTok, it goes to the top 20. That doesn't necessarily translate to a load of sales. It means there are books selling. Yeah. But that's also dependent on the activity around you. Some of the other books, if they're selling, they're not selling. It fluctuates wildly. If I come off TikTok for now, if I've got a ban for 3 days, that will slowly, it'll fall back down the chart slowly. So TikTok makes a massive difference. And when you're on it, as you know yourself, when you're posting videos, it does throw out your older videos a little bit as well. It chucks out all sorts, so people are picking up older posts, not just the recent ones.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time to sort of figure out how it works. But mate, it's working on every front. That's why for me, when some unfortunate troll decides to report me for hate speech or harassment and bullying, which is the usual ones I get, they don't realize that they're disrupting the business. But that's the nature of the game, isn't it?
It's also disrupting people who follow you and people who are wanting support of you. Like you said, you've been asked to be a mentor. Is that something you would do, as being a mentor? Because I'd imagine that would be very fulfilling, Like
100%, mate. There's people. I'm lucky. I didn't struggle with it. My addiction was risk taking, so I didn't suffer with drug addiction. But mine was taking risks and doing stupid things. But there's plenty of people with all different kinds of addiction. And although I'm not an expert, I'd love to be able to mentor people through a journey. If they're coming out of jail and they're not quite sure where they're going to go with their lives, I can give a bit of direction. I've got things in place to say, look, it's easy to give up when things don't go the way you want them to go. And you've got to have a little bit of resilience about you to try and push through the tough times, especially with COVID. That's knackered a lot of people's plans. It knacked my plans properly. I had the plan to come out of jail, put my course for veterans back in the prisons within a year. That was all set. That was going to happen last April. And then COVID came along and killed it. Didn't kill it. It just buried it a little bit, that's life, isn't it? We don't suddenly turn to the bottle or go out and do stupid things because things don't go our way.
See, like when you were in the army, then I take it were you in infantry? Were you? Then you were you in infantry or?
No, I was in tank regiment, so I was a tanky. So I was in I joined the 3rd Tank Regiment in 88. We amalgamated to the 2nd in 92. I was based in Germany for the whole 7.5 years in Germany, apart from a trip to Northern Ireland in 1990 and a trip to Cyprus in 93. A few trips to Canada, Sardinia, usual sort of stuff. But it was nuts, mate. I loved it.
Did the army fuel your adrenaline? And you just
100%. And they knew the thing is, the army knows they need to do that. Because what you'll get is in peacetime or Cold War time, which is what we are now, and we're like that now, bear in mind, we're like this now at the minute, which is why people in the forces, they're not used to being in peacetime. The guys that have done all the Herrick's and Telex into Afghanistan and Iraq, they joined up, say, maybe 20 years ago. They're not used to peacetime, so they're getting bored. They'll start doing silly things. For us, they would make sure we had something to do. So you'd see, you get your year forecast 12 months in advance. So let's say from April to April for financial year, you'd know when you're going to go on leave. You'd know when you're going to have your Christmas break. You'd know when you're going to go on, we used to call it adventure training.
Yep.
Which means basically you're going to go away for a couple of weeks and do something really fun. So you'd have 2 weeks adventure training in the summer, get same in the winter. So because I was in Germany, we go to Bavaria, down in the south of Germany on the Austrian border. And mate, it's beautiful. You drive down there in your back of your Bedford 4-tonner, looking at the back, just driving down the autobahn with all the lads. You're in civvies. You're going on holiday and it's paid by everyone watching this, by your taxpayers. They're paying it for you. But you need that because you go when you do things like canoeing, rock climbing, abseiling, everything which could be adventurous, just to satisfy that risk-taking behavior. You go heavily on, you go out and get pretty drunk as well, mine, most nights, but the whole point of it was just go away and do something adventurous to keep your risk-taking sort of satisfied. And that gives you something to do. Plus, a lot of guys go down there, identify that they might be really good at these particular things, and you become instructors. You know, so then you can sort of take a sort of slight turn with your career, rather than you're still in the army, but you might find you're really good at skiing, or you're really good at rock climbing. You can be an instructor. You can take your course, and you can stay there for the whole season. I didn't do that because I never pursued that. But you can then go down to, say, Bavaria. We had guys that were spot on at everything, really really sporty. They'd spend like 4 months of the summer down in Bavaria, teaching people how to rock climb, windsurf, canoeing, kayak, and all that sort of thing. Come back to regiment for like 2 or 3 months, and then come sort of like November-ish, we'd all pop off back down to Bavaria and go skiing for 2 weeks. And they'd become ski instructors. So that'd be their career. And if they're really good, they'd end up doing like skiing for the British team.
Actually, I've got friends who were in the army, and I don't know if it's maybe because they were in the infantry. As soon as they would be home, that would be them. They'd be out partying, taking coke, taking ease. And I was like, "What are you doing that for?" He's like, "Oh, it's just we didn't get to do anything." And when we're, like you said, peacetime, he's like, he's just like, "Oh, we're on R&R." And I'm like,
"Yeah,
sure, if you're in the infantry, you shouldn't be doing that kind of shit." And he's like,
"I know, mate. It's bad. It got really bad in just before, I think, about 94. There was no compulsory drug testing.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter. Well, it did matter, but no one was getting caught and kicked out. So we were all dabbling. I first noticed it. It was just before 92, early 92. This is going back a bit now. Our barracks in a place called Hamer in Germany. And they were like single floor, like a big, like, I don't describe a Nissan hut, but it's a big long barrack room, just rooms each side, a big corridor down the middle. So if you sat in your room, you could look out your window to the other barracks. There's like a strip of grass down the middle, you know, and it's very regimental. And I'm sat there with my mate, just watching the telly, and we were probably watching porn, I expect, knowing us being squaddies. And just see 2 lads walk past the window. You just clock it in your peripheral. You think, all right, not to worry, leave that alone. And then you sit there, and like about 5 minutes later on, they walk past again. And I said, "What are they doing, mate?" He goes, "Oh, they're having a smoke, aren't they? They won't smoke it inside because of the smell will be picked up." So we looked at, and they're walking past, they're just smoking a joint. And I thought, "Oh, that's interesting." Because a lot of my mates back in Civvy Street were just getting involved and starting to smoke a bit of pot. They were all sort of venturing down that route because they were old enough. They hadn't left home yet, but they were kind of being a little bit reckless. So when I was going on leave, I seen my mate smoking pot. Because I'd never smoked, it didn't really appeal to me. But all of a sudden I thought, well, if they're doing it, why can't I have a little go on that? But I didn't bother so much until about probably maybe some months later on. We sat and we went for a drive around the, not during match, but some really nice drives around there. And we sat in the car, and we went, these 2 guys who like to smoke, me and my other pal. And we popped out for a drive, and we're just following each other. We're not going reckless, we're just having a nice drive. And we're up through these German hills and all the forests everywhere, and we're stuck in traffic. And then one of the guys in the front car gets out, and he walks up and he passes this joint through the window. And I thought, ooh. And he passed me this little joint. I thought, and he goes, "Go on, have a little puff." Oh, sod it, why not? So I had a little smoke on it. Give it to me. I had a smoke on it. And then that's the first time I tried. And I'm giggling my tits off. I'm laughing. I've got the giggles, and I'm driving. And then it's cliche. Everything from that point on was as if you had your first joint. So we went to, we called it a Schnelly van, which is I think Schnellmacher means quick. So Schnelly van means fast food. I think. I could be wrong. And it's always run by sort of like, you know, like a sort of kebab van, I guess, same sort of thing. And you go in there, and I ordered it. It's called a gyros pita, which is like kebab, not kebab meat, but freshly chopped meat in a pita bread, a bit of salad, and a bit of like, I think it's called tzatzini, like a sort of like a sort of white kind of cucumber flavored sauce thing,
like cucumbers and stuff or something.
Yeah, that's it. So I had a bottle of chocolate milk, and I was getting back, and I yammed the hell out of that on the way back in the car. I remember getting in back into the camp, parked the car, got out the car, went, I just yacked a lot of it up outside the car. And then I realized I'd not overdone the smoking, it hit me like a ton of bricks, mate. I had to go to bed and lie down. I didn't touch it again then for ages. I felt horrible. It was worse than a hangover, mate. Head was spinning, totally wrote off.
When I first got diagnosed with the cancer, that's what I was doing. I was smoking grass, and my friends like, "Tam, don't smoke that full joint." But I couldn't feel it straight away. I was like, "This is not working." Next thing, I'm in the toilet, and I thought my wife was upstairs and everything. I'm like, "Oh, why is he doing this to me for?" And I was on couch like that for 2 days. Couldn't he move? I was just like,
did it write you off?
Oh, I was white-eyed, couldn't move, nothing.
No way. We had a girl where I was living in these flats for ex-forces when we got out. My neighbour downstairs, I said this on some of the podcasts, where we ended up renting these flats, and it's by a company for housing for ex-forces. So we're plotted up I'm on this top floor flat, and this is like right in the heyday of our party, and it's around about probably 96, 97. And we're just all on it all the time. And my mate downstairs, he's got his missus, she's moved in with him. And we're all, it's partying from like, literally from probably Thursday until Sunday at some point. And then we might spend a few days trying to recover. And they're always having an argument and a row about something. And he used to have a smoke of solids. And I think he had, it was either an 8 for, I think it was an 8, if I remember rightly. And they're arguing. And she looked at him like that. She grabbed his 8 for that. And it's almost like when you watch the old cartoons with Tom and Jerry, where they grab a key and swallow the key. Yeah. She grabbed this 8 for pot, put it in her mouth, just swallowed it to spite him. He looked at her and thought, you're in so much trouble. And like within about an hour or so, she was just totally wrote off. She was ill. She had to go to bed. She was done, mate. Like yourself, probably for a good day or so. She was wrote off, mate. Nothing left.
I take it back then. Were you quite big into the club scene then?
Massive, mate. Oh yeah, it was unreal. I wasn't ready for it, Sam. I got, when I came out in 95, doing my door work, like and which was all right. It was offered to me as a cash job. So I was doing that on one of the pubs on the centre of Bristol, and that's all well and good. And I was doing a bit of amphetamine at the time because everyone else was doing that, and I thought wasn't peer pressure. It's just, well, everyone else is, I may as well, because otherwise I'm not going to be on the same level as them, and I'm now going to be a civilian. So, when in Rome, let's just get on with it. So I was doing this, and then I'd leave my door job at say 11, because that's when pubs shut at 11 o'clock, because we're talking like the mid-90s. And I'd wander down through the city centre, get to the club my mates used to go into, which was called Odyssey at the time, and it's right opposite the police station. And then I'd go in there, and then it was just banging music. I mean, I've always loved clubbing anyway, always loved it. But I'll go in there, and then I saw my mates upstairs, and they're just all having a really good time. And I'm at this point now, I'm sort of like, I'm not really feeling it anymore. And he said, look, do you want one of these? And they sorted me out a pill. And then when I took that, mate, oh, mate, it just blew my head off. I felt like I'd arrived somewhere different, totally different. It was an absolute belter. But it kind of, I said, probably got in the way of my transition, because when I come out of the army, I had this master plan of going involved in protection, in close protection and surveillance and everything else. That was the plan, do all that. And then, but the trouble is, I got introduced to this bit of ecstasy, and it kind of made me think that the weekends are really important for going out clubbing and partying, because I've missed so many weekends away in the army, seven odd years of weekends I wasn't at home. I thought, I've got catching up to this, like coming out of jail. I thought I've got so many years to catch up with, and I want to be a part of this for these weekends. So it kind of got in the way, because the weekends were getting that heavy on like a Friday and a Saturday night. I was so tired on Mondays. I was getting up to do a surveillance job on a Monday morning, getting up at 5:30, to be on plot somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and to be sat in a car waiting for potentially hours and hours. And of course, I'm like that. I'm asleep, waiting for the radio to go, yeah, we're on the move. And then you wake up with that, and oh, mate, it was bad. I was struggling to do the both. It wasn't working out, so I had to make some tough decisions.
We've got a wee question from our mutual friend B. She said,
Oh yeah.
What song would you associate with your involvement in the club scene?
Do you know what, there's loads from then come to mind, but there's one song, right? One song which I want this playing at my funeral, whenever that might be. And it's Paul van Dyk, For an Angel.
This is no joke. I was about to say that as well.
It's just one of those songs which you never get bored of. And it's just because there's so many different versions of it and variations. You've got the one with Rachel McFarlane singing in the background when they sync the two songs together. That's good, a bit more lively. But the original one with Paul van Dyk, mate, it's just, every time I hear it, if I hear that in a club, I get the sensation that I'm back on a pill again. And I'm dancing, I'm gone.
Yeah, that, because as soon as you said that, that's what I was like. I was actually doing it last night. I was sitting listening to Paul van Dyk, For an Angel. Yeah. That takes you back to instant club nights.
Yeah, all day long. And some of the tunes that came out back in, say, mid-95. And for me, it was a real weird time because everything's new. Although I've been there before, and I was 25, and everything was new. It's a new experience because you're meeting people and not in the army anymore. And you meet when you're on leave and you meet someone that you like. Looks like I've got a fucking something on my nose, doesn't it? It's a shadow. when you meet someone when you're on leave, and it might be a friend or a girl, you've got moments to get to know that person, because you're shooting off back to Germany within a few days. So you didn't get a chance to really galvanize a friendship properly. So it's always kind of like, yeah, how you doing, mate? It's like a mad rush for a few days or a couple of weeks, and then you disappear again. But when I was out and knew I was out for the rest of my life, when you meet someone in a club, if it's a friend or a potential girlfriend, you know that you don't have to rush. You can say, well, I'll see you next week. Or I'll catch up with you, because you can. In the past, I couldn't do that, so you get a chance to meet. I won't say they're necessarily real friends, because a lot of people involved in drugs, they ain't your real friends, are they? They're just friends for one reason, because you might be able to sort them out or something. But yeah, it was just so many different music songs coming on the scene at that time. In that, probably within that year of, say, summer 95, summer 96, it just made it change something in my head.
I think it was like the club scene and your weekends that kind of snowballed you into the career path that you went into.
Yeah, definitely, because I find that if I run it as, say, two parallels, yeah, my master plan when I came there was to be a bodyguard and surveillance and all that sort of thing, security, that was going all right. And then the other side of it was my clubbing, my social life on one side. So trying to manage the two. Now, my parallel life with the security was going really well. The surveillance job I was really good. Although I was tired, I was functioning. I was managing to do the job, 3-4 days a week surveillance, which back then was really good. Taking on some freelance work, do some other jobs, bit of bodyguard work, bit of protection, some door work. It was okay. It was paying the bills, but I was spending the money as quick as I was getting it, because I wasn't used to paying for bills with poor skills from the army. What's in my bank was mine. I didn't understand about things like tax and council tax and electric bills. What's all that? I've never paid that before, so I just won't. So the career path I'd taken with security was kind of breaking down a little bit, not because I wasn't available, because in 95, 96, early 97, the SIA badge hadn't been introduced to regulate the industry. So there's a lot of people involved in it which wouldn't be involved in it now. People that decide not to pay you for a job. And I was doing surveillance jobs and people just weren't paying you. And you're not guaranteed a result. If you do a surveillance job, I could sit outside someone's house for 3 days, watch the house, film the movement, keep a log of anything, film every now and again to evidence that I was there, but I can't make them do what they're not supposed to do. If someone's got a bad back, I can't make them come out and change a tire in the car. We can't do that. It's entrapment. You can't go out and let a tire down. Like, it's just wrong. So I'd be submitting this file to the person who subcontracted me in. So there you go. There's a file there. Come and see you in a week for payment. Just have a look over everything I've got there. We'll see it. And a couple of times I'd do that, and I was dependent on that money for things like bills, rent, and everything else. I get into this place and they say, "Oh, you ain't got us a result, mate. We're not going to pay you." What do you mean you ain't going to pay me? You said, "We ain't going to pay you, mate. You haven't got the result we were looking for." So I can't make them do what you want them to do. So I can't force people. So we'll pay you a retainer. So no, that's not enough, mate. I need paying the whole lot, because I was there for this amount of hours. I put fuel in the car. I've paid someone to come and help me out. I want my money. And they weren't doing it, and it was getting to the point where I was getting quite angry at people. So I just kind of like tried my best. But on the parallel side, my partying scene was really enjoying that. And I was meeting people who were getting involved in distribution, albeit on a really small scale. You're talking like street level at that time. And I was struggling financially. I was finding it really hard, mate. I was finding it so difficult to make ends meet, because my priority was going out on a Friday and a Saturday night. Nothing else mattered. All I cared about was that weekend. I'd live on nothing all through the week. As long as I can go out on the weekend, I didn't care. So in the end, one of the lads that I was knocking around with at the time, good pal, we go about years, and there's a few of us really good mates. When it was a group of us, and we always used to start having a pill each on a Saturday night, and it's just a Saturday at the time. I was doing Fridays occasionally, but at that time it was just Saturdays. And the guy that was getting our pills for us, he just decided he didn't want to do it anymore. His ass had gone a little bit, and he thought, I don't know if I don't want to do it anymore. I said, well, I'll do it. It ain't a problem. I'll just do it. So off I went, and I started grabbing the pills off this guy directly. He did me a cheaper price because I'm not getting them in the clubs. So I realized when I get mine for free, and then it went like that. So it just started off literally by buying 4 or 5 pills, for like £8, banging them out for tenors. And I thought, well, that's mine covered, isn't it? So now the money that I was struggling for, I don't have to find a tenner for a pill. I've just got to literally go down the road, pick these up, drive back, give them to me mates, and then that's that done. And so a tenner, it's nothing, is it? But it's £10 I didn't have at the time. It's £10 less I had to worry about. And it kind of went from there, because then we were always seen, because we were regular in the club, the people would come in who couldn't get a pill. They'd see us off our tits. They think, oh, mate, are you on something? So, oh, yeah, clearly, because I'm gurning like a good in it. Of course I am. So they would then, so where'd you get them from? I said, I can't say that. So have you got any left? No. And it just clicked on me. I thought, oh, okay, maybe there's something there then. So I went to the guy a lot again and asked for him, and it built up from there.
You think it escalated pretty quick for you, like from the start?
It took a long time, mate. It kind of stayed fairly dormant for a little while, like maybe 20 or 30 pills a weekend, literally. Next night for a good 6 months or so, it stayed as it was. And then it suddenly went up to 100. And when I got to that 100, the price dropped again. And then I found I could do pills a little bit cheaper. So what I did, I said to some people who were coming to me constantly, they said, oh, can I get another one? Can I get another one? Can I get another one? So look, mate, you're coming at me in a club 5 or 6 times, 7 times in a night. So why not I see you outside the club, give you 10 on credit, give you a cheaper deal, and you do it that way. And they say, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So you kind of like, it's wholesale, you branch out, don't you? And it just went from that. And then what I found, by pure chance, me and my mate that got out of the army, by this time, we was 3 of us living in these block of flats, 3 veterans, and my mate that had left sometime after me, he'd end up moving in next door. We partnered in the cells because he was going to the clubs. He was the same as me, just going out, just getting wasted every weekend. And we had a phone call from a guy from down Taunton. I could say that. There's a lot of them from Taunton. And he rang me up and he said, how you doing? I said, I'm okay, mate. I'm not too bad. He said, I'm just on the way back from Liverpool. I said, yeah. He said, can I pop in? Yeah, chucked him my address. He came round, we had a chat, and turns out he'd been sent up to Liverpool to get some pills, or Birmingham, sorry, to get some pills. He came back empty-handed. They said, we got let down. He said, can you get any? I said, well, yeah, I get them all the time. It's not a problem. So how many do you want? He said, I need 1,000. I thought, oh, really? He said, yeah. I said, right, okay. I thought, shit, that's more than I'm used to, but I'm not going to say no. So I spoke to my partner. So mate, one of the lads from the regiment, he said he's got some boys. He's sorting out. Or he was a runner for them down in, we call it the gateway to the south. So if you can get Exeter, Taunton area boxed off, you've got everything south of that boxed off as well, because you've got a good chance of getting a supply chain coming down to the southwest. So he said, look, he's got people he's working with, sort of Taunton, Exeter area. He needs 1,000 pills. And we thought, oh, right, okay. So I spoke to my guy. I said, mate, we need 1,000. He said, yeah, I can do that for you. Because he was buying 1,000 anyway at the time. But that would then increase his buying power. So he's jumped right on it. So me and him have then taken a trip up to get, and these guys are paying cash down in Taunton. They're giving us the ready. So and back then, I can't remember the exact figure. I think it was round about, let's say maybe £4 a pill, for argument's sake. It might not have been, but I think it was around about £3.54 a pill. So he's giving us 3.5, 4 grand. So we're going up there, do this deal, and I've now got 1,000 pills. I got a bag, and I think, oh my god, then you got to check they're okay. We could smell them. If they had a certain smell, you're okay. So I won't broadcast that just in case. So we then take them back, and then what I realized when they do these things, obviously they come out of pill presses and everything else. They're counted, but I think they're weighed as well. I think sometimes they're weighed by volume, because when you're counting through this bag of 1,000, which takes a while, we used to get a big massive mirror on the floor or on a big shiny table, literally pour them all out, get a credit card and just literally scoop 5, 10 into hundreds and do it that way. You get to the end, you get to your 1,000, oh, still loads left. So there's still 20 or 30 left over, and a load of powder.
Yeah,
that's all sellable, even the broken bits. So we count what's left, and that's our bonus. Then you're going to get, you've made a bit of money on them anyway. And if you got these like 20 or 30 left, plus some bits, plus some powder, you might have like 5 or 6 grams of powder. So we're bagging that up, selling that for like, 15 quid for a bag of pill powder, which people were just doing whatever they wanted to do with it, smoking it, I don't know, eating it, bombing it in a Rizzler. And it suddenly realized that there's more money to be made there, but it wasn't big money. It was like you're talking a few pounds. You're not talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
So did that Phil's and give you your first taste of making big money? Like,
well, it kind of introduced me to wholesale and the business aspect of it. So then I was kind of like bouncing around a bit. So it was a bit up and down. So for say this happened around about 97. It was 90? Yeah, it was definitely 97. And then we had a big drought, 97, early 98. We couldn't get nothing for about 6 months. It was just dead, totally dead. And so the pill market really died, and we were struck. So I was selling pot anyway, and I wasn't involved in coke at that stage. People were starting to mess with it a little bit, but I wasn't really interested. And then the pill market died off. And then it came back on the scene again, early 98. And when the buses landed, and it went bonkers again, it went absolutely nuts. So then I started like, the orders came in because whoever could get that first batch of pills after that drought was going to monopolize on it in the sense of picking up new customers. And I was lucky I was one of them. My mate came through, he said, yeah, we can get them how many you need. So I'll ring around, and I was ringing my guys that were buying off me, but they were ringing their guys who were also supplying them on other times, who couldn't get any. And they said, right, put your suppliers into me. We were turning tables a little bit. So I've ended up buying like 5,000. Then I was getting like 10,000 a week in the end, or 10,000 a fortnight, sorry. And it was like, and so on the odd occasion, I might have picked up about 50,000 once, like a big carry bag full of them. It's like, it was just 5 bags full of 10,000 in each bag. And oh God, that's some serious counting. But I didn't. I just put them out on wholesale.
Did MD ever like question you on it? Did MD ever like perceive that you were doing this, or it was just a weekend thing and you were just doing it to get your own freebies?
Yeah, it was a weird one because everyone that was new, I was doing a little bits kind of to petered out slightly off the scene, because their commitment, I was committed to the club scene, and they're kind of, a couple of them stayed on it, but when I started doing it, I just told them I was still doing little bits. They didn't realize I was going into the wholesale, and I was still kind of half working. So I carried on the I suppose the blatant lie that I was still working in security. So everyone around me thought I was still doing security for the week. They thought I was still doing a bit of surveillance here. No one's thought to question what I was doing or how I was doing it. As long as I was okay, they seemed quite content with that. So I just sort of carried on doing it. And I functioned during the week. Although I was really tired from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I functioned all right. I kept my head together, and I never got massively wasted on the weekend, because then for me, it was like I was selling. I needed to keep some sort of faculties about me while I was doing it. So the routine would be on a Thursday night, we'd go out as a student night, I'd take 1 pill. Friday night, I'd be like your first night for everyone else, I'd take a couple. Where everyone else is doing 2 or 3, I'm just have a couple. Saturday would be 3. But it'd be not all at the same time, but across the night. It might even 3. Sometimes it might just be 2. Well, never got past that. I never double drops. I never chased that buzz, because for me then it was about earning some money to pay my bills. Because by then security had dried up. Although I was telling people I was doing it, there was no security work left over. It was gone. It was dead. It's dead in the water. So I spent a good sort of 2-3 years from 95 till back into 98. Just existing, just selling a few pills, albeit it might have been a few thousand over there. But if you divide that between 2 people, me and my mate that was my partner, it's not a lot of profit, because we were both spending the money like it was water.
When was it you first realised that you would have to start getting bigger and bigger to make money for yourself, so to live off it? I
think I realised at the time in 98, sort of 99, I'd met my wife at the time, and we'd had our first son in 1999. And what I found was there was no money left in ecstasy. It was just gone. You're making pence. We were buying in for like, I think it's like 30p a pill on 10,000. It was ridiculous, mate. It was stupid.
That's what taking them when you're getting 5 for a tenner.
I know, it's nuts, isn't it? It's actually bonkers. Think back in the late 80s, you'd be paying 15, 20 quids, and so there was slippage on it. And I thought, I'm risking, potentially 10 years in prison for like 10,000, 20,000 ecstasy tablets. I'm only making a few hundred quid. That's just stupid. So I looked at the options and.
Sorry, was that you just thinking to yourself, I need to get a team here, I'll get bigger?
Yeah, I just looked at the option, and a few people at that point then were getting more involved in coke. They were selling a bit more, but I never really wanted to venture into it, because I saw a mate of mine he was having headaches all the time. He was selling grams, and he was just having headaches, constantly chasing people up. He was living on the front line, so he was out go in people's houses, drop off a few grams, having a line with them, and he was on it all the time. And I found we were kind of the same. We would like, although I was never addicted, I did like it. They were open for a phase where I quite enjoyed it because everyone else around was quite enjoying it because it was quite good at the time. And this was before people were messing with it too much, before benzocaine really came on the scene. So because benzocaine came on the scene about 2001, 2002, or it became readily available, shall I say. So what we were getting prior to that was actually really good kit. And we found that it was always like, because I didn't have to get up for work in the morning, they come into my flat on an evening on a Tuesday and they said, well, should we get one on the go? For why not? There's nothing else to do, is there? So we was having a dabble on the weekends, but I saw the headaches he was having trying to chase around getting the money in to pay his bills. Although he was doing it, I thought that's a lot of work. So I kind of like stayed out of it. I might have done this thing where I grabbed 5 off him. He said, he's still doing it. He said, you let you have 6 grams, pay him for 5. But that's all right. So we kind of like did a little bit of that. So I had a few customers on small scale, nothing major. And the business was just kind of like it plateaued. There was no money coming in. At this stage then, in 1999, I got a job working for a textiles firm, driving a delivery van, delivering tea towels and laundry and stuff like that, which kind of paid the bills. So I was actually, because I was with my wife at the time, we hadn't got married at this stage, we had a son. I thought, well, anything that comes in from my job pays the household bills, that's fine. Anything from the other thing, it's just a little bit of extra cash to play with. And she just thought I was doing security jobs, so it didn't really matter. I just off doing security. So we weren't flush by any means. We were just literally managing. We might have had a couple £100 here and there, but it wasn't significant. It might go and do a deal, earn a couple £100. I was doing anything I could. I was selling like kilos of green. I thought at the time I was buying 10, 15 kilos of green a week, and that was going out. So it's coming from Holland. And it was coming over in vac bags, and it was all right. It was before people start spinning it and spraying it. If anyone doesn't know what that means, it's prior to some of the stuff coming over, it'd be almost spun in like a washing machine effect, where they would spin the cannabis, the vegetable matter, as the police would call it, and it would spin out all the THC. It would leave the plant. You end up with the plant which looks the part. But all the stuff that does the job, it's been collected on this drum. They're scooping it out and selling that as a separate product.
Yeah.
So we get substandard stuff coming over. But the worst thing is people are spraying it with like sort of like sandy stuff, which had the orange look. It looked like bud, and it's coming over, and it was actually like almost glass. When you're smoking it, it's almost turning the glass. It was really, really bad. So that was prior to the spinning and the spraying thing, which was going on sort of like the back end of the last millennium. That sounds really old, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that was like, and it was good stuff. It was okay. I was paying 3.2, 3.3 a kid, knocking out for like 3.5. So I was making a few £100 at a time on that, and that kind of just filled in a few gaps where we were struggling financially.
Did that time where you stopped taking it though? Like stopped partying and that, and to concentrate on your business? Like,
yeah, so I binned it in early 99. My girlfriend, or my wife, who used to be a wife then, she's not anymore. We fell pregnant, so we had our first son in October 99. In fact, it was his birthday yesterday. Happy birthday yesterday, son. So he's 22 now. So that stage then I thought, I'm gonna be a dad, and I'm in no fit state to be a father. If I can't clubbing and partying all the time, I got to sort my shit out. So I thought, that's it, I'm going to sort myself out. So that's when within 2 months, I had a job doing this delivery job. So once I stopped partying and stopped clubbing, I found that all of a sudden I was awake again in the week. I wasn't tired all the time. I didn't have a come down anymore. So all of a sudden my head started firing properly, instead of like, because I could only really think straight and properly when I was on it for a couple of days a week. And that might be from some point on Wednesday and Thursday before I went out and got wasted again. So really about a day and a half a week, I was actually quite clear in my head and I knew what I was doing. But all of a sudden I was clear all the time and my head was in a better place. So the business sort of side of me just sort of kicked in a little bit. Yeah. And that's when I started looking at selling more, because I was meeting people in my delivery job, guys at that place working from different parts of the site, not all over the southwest, but certain areas, south of Bristol, south of Bath is about the best I'll give. They were working there, and everyone smoked pot. I don't know why. Back then, before you could get tested for drug driving, all the drivers smoked pot, which was crazy because you pull out of the yard with your little laundry van full of tea towels and overalls and sheets from hotels and a joint, and off you went. So of course we're all sort of like testing the water. Oh, who's doing what? Where are you getting yours from? And I tapped into these guys, which are from, I'll just say it, sort of down in Trowbridge. And I tapped into this guy and he said, I got a lad down there I know who can who you can bump into and do a few bits with. So we got an introduction to these guys down in Trowbridge, which were doing a load of stuff in all the little towns and villages south of Bath. And they take a lot of drugs down there. It was unreal. I didn't realize, I thought we did a lot in the city, but it's unreal down there. They're flat out. And it kind of, and it's all paid cash. So it boosted my buying power significantly. So all of a sudden and this was just pot, and this guy also used to buy pills as well. So suddenly it got reborn again by doing some pot and some pills, and this was cash. So what I'll do is I take these things on credit. You know, like I might take on these 10,000 pills on credit, and like, you know, I was sometimes buying 50 kilos of slate at the time. I take all that on, go and sell this, like this guy might have 10 key of this, and he might have a couple of thousand pills, and he'd pay cash for it. So let's say I might have 10 or 12 grand cash. I ain't got to use that for a week. So I'm then thinking, I've got 12 grand cash here. So I then go and buy stuff for cash cheaper and sell it on again. So I'd use their money to go and purchase something else. High risk, because if it goes wrong, you've lost their money. Right. Yeah, but it doesn't end well. So I kind of started thinking outside the box a little bit. I think I just did that. It was just literally, it was living really week by week.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't really have a master plan. I just week by week, I didn't have any plan of getting out. It was just ticking over. You know, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And the weird thing is, the book being the character, even on the screen, the lost soldier, that's because I was lost at that stage. I didn't know what I was doing. I just didn't know. I had no direction. I just knew that I was a dad. I needed to do the best for my son at the time, and my wife at the time. I need to provide. But the only way how was all right, I was working for this textiles company, earning a measly £800 a month, maybe £900 a month, but I was earning a similar figure a month doing the other thing, maybe slightly more, sometimes less. And that's kind of how it sat for a little while.
Come a point though where you were like, shit, I'm kind of big now, or got yourself into, you must have got yourself into some precarious situations and thought, am I going to get out of this, and am I going to get home to see my kid?
Yeah, there was a lad. We used to have a lot of parties at different houses, and some of the guys at a big club and who were buying not the original group of guys on about it, some of my customers from the clubs, they'd only ever see you in one dimension. They'd see you with a couple of pills, and when they'd stop getting them off me directly and they're buying them off of someone via myself. We used to have parties all the time. It's like you go back to an after party, don't you? You go back to the house and you just sat there and you're having a drink. Maybe someone digs out a bit of Coke or whatever. And one of the guy looked at me, he said, I didn't realize how big you got on, mate. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, mate, you're selling a lot of stuff now. To me, it didn't seem like a lot because it was such a gradual build up. You know, but at the stage I was probably doing, so between 5 and 10,000 pills a fortnight, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 kilos of slate a fortnight or a week, plus all this green, you know, and to me, it was just like, it was normal because that's what it had become. But to them, it was like, you're doing a lot, mate. That's a lot of stuff. It didn't feel like it to me. And that's when it dawned on me. Yeah. And I thought, Christ, and then I thought, well, let's get involved in Coke then. So I just...
When did you think to yourself did you ever think that trying to keep a normal life and then keep that life, which one was more stressful? Trying to keep it to your wife and kids that you're normal and you're doing a normal job, or the other side?
Both together. But do you know what, the thing, trying to act, I said a few things on TikTok about, so how do you lie to, how do you hide the money from your missus if she didn't know what you're doing? And I said, well, the trouble is when you're doing well, nobody asks any questions. They don't ask why we suddenly got a couple hundred quid to go and have a nice meal. That's easy to hide because you don't have to show them the money. You show whatever's necessary, don't you? Yeah. It's when it's gone completely Pete Tong and you got to hide the stress that you're under. So yeah, hiding that when it's gone wrong in your life, in the drugs world, that will have an indirect effect on your family life, because you can't possibly go home and pretend that you ain't worried a little bit about that door going through with the police or guys you may or may not owe money to. You know, I've had to get my missus and kids out of the house quickly some years ago, because someone got upset that I wasn't going to give them money because they tried to extort money at me. And I said, I ain't doing it. You're not having the money, mate. I don't owe you money. You ain't having it. He said, well, come around your house then. Because I made the stupid mistake of showing them where I live, because we had a after parties. Yeah, come back to mine. I made the daft mistake of showing them where I lived. And I thought they knew where I live, you know, because my missus originally from Stoke-on-Trent. So if she wasn't there on a weekend, she's going to maybe see her parents. I'd have the lads back and have a party at mine, you know. So I made that mistake to these people. And then they decided that they didn't like that I was doing well. I was getting on better. So they tried to extort money out of me. And I wasn't giving it. I was not going to pay that money. It's not going to happen. And we'll come around your house, Sam. And I thought, oh no, the missus, I got my young son there. My son like was 2 or 3 at the time. And I thought, this is bad. That's when I realized that, what am I supposed to do about this? I know what some people suggested I should do, but I'm not going to start getting involved in things which could be potentially put me for a very long time, you know. So I thought I had to ring her up and say, we got some bad news, something's gone wrong. So I've done and this was horrendous. I've done a surveillance on someone. They found out who's done the job, and they know where I live. They want to come round and cause some problems. So what do you mean? I said, look, you got to pack a bag, get our son's stuff all together, get out of the house and do it now. I'm on the way back. I'll be home in I'm home within half an hour. We're going. We have to leave that house. And that was horrible, because I had to disrupt her normal life. Or my son was too young to understand what's going on. But what horrible gift must I have been to consciously be involved in something, and then suddenly tell your wife, who you love dearly, and your kids, who they're your world, aren't they? To suddenly say, right, we got some horrible people coming out. They didn't know it's drug dealers. They just thought it was someone that was upset. So you got to understand why it's so severe. I say, you have to get out of that house, pack the bags. And that was it. We never went back to the house. We never returned. We literally up sticks and left.
When it come to you finally getting caught, did people threaten you? Did you have like a bounty put on your head and stuff, like to keep quiet, or did you just take it on to be like, I'm going to take this on the chin, eh?
Lucky, whether it's lucky or unlucky, because I was classed as the leading role on my conspiracy, there was no one. The police never asked me if I could. They never asked me for any names. They said, it pretty much clear said, "You're the one we want. You're the guy we were looking for. You know, we've been struggling to get you," sort of thing. So there was never any deal on the table. Not that I would have taken it, but there was never any pressure from up top, because they, in their investigation, they reached the top of where they wanted to be on this particular case. They'd also taken out my suppliers on another investigation, which I was arrested on as well. So they had everyone. They took the lot down, and the benefit with that was any monies that were owed across the board, up, down, sideways, whichever way it is. As far as I'm concerned, that's written off. I was owed so much money, mate. When I got nicked, I was owed a semi-detached. Put it that way, a semi-detached. That's all I can say, you know. And then I wrote all that off, because I thought, well, I've been arrested. Is that's the nature of the game, isn't it? It's gone. You know, I could sit there and carry this burden on my shoulders, hating on people for owing me money and not paying it back. When the reality is, it was all done and dusted. I never had the money. It just never got rounded up. So I just decided to bin it.
Some life, though.
Oh, mate, yeah, it was horrible. It was just, you know, it's such a relief when I got arrested, though. When they came and nicked me, and I saw the cars turn up to the I was in my garage at the time, and my dream was come true, mate. I'd had everything. I got the garage up and running. The motorsport was doing well, albeit we come out of a recession, and it was a cold winter. That cold winter of the winter of 2010, it was freezing cold. Was it the Beast from the East had landed? Yeah, you know, it was freezing cold, and it was horrible. But I was sat there thinking, this is it. I've got my garage. I've got my race cars in front of me. The drift team are there. We're looking forward to 2011. We're all good, you know. And I was out of the drugs, so I was moving on. It was all set to go. And then when the police turned up, because I knew they were coming, because of the arrest that had happened prior to that, and when they came through the door, I thought, this is it now. It's time to accept the reality. Welcome on board. I'm going to prison.
Did you just go see when you got when you initially went to court and that, and they said to you how many years you were getting, did you think you were getting those years, or did you know it was going to get, like, you'd be getting out sooner?
No, do you know what? I didn't have, because when you go and getting ready for a trial, especially when you got 2 counts of conspiracy against, it can get quite complex because of the amount of co-defendants we had. There's like 13 of us all together. And they said, we can't put you all on one trial. It's too many people because we got people on remand, people on bail. The people were at large. There was a Serbian guy done a bunk and they were trying to track him down still. So they couldn't find him until he got caught up with about a year later. So it was complex for the CPS to try and decide what to do. So it takes a long time. So you're talking a year of court dates and pre-case trials and hearings and everything else just to prep up for that big day. So you're trying to find out an indication from the judge what you're going to get. But the trouble is, if you ask for an indication of what you're going to get, that's an admission of guilt. In my eyes. If I say, what am I looking at, judge? It's, well, you were if you're innocent. That's how I see it. So my barrister said, we can't ask you. He said, but from my experience, I think you're looking at about 15 years. You just went over my head. I thought, this is stupid. I'm not looking at 15 years. And my brief wasn't up. I said, oh, you're going to be fine, mate. Don't worry. Of course, he's milking the money off of legal aid. And we got to the trial and we're looking at the various guidelines and categories and everything else about where you fit. And I was trying to figure out, it says like category 2, category 1, the main one. So up to category 2, it's up to 1 kilo. Category 1, I think, is up to 1 kilo and above, basically. So I'm looking at, right, so what's been nicked with the guys that got nicked with me, it's like something like 1.5 kilos. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot of stuff, but it was enough to say, well, we know you're at it. We might not have got much on the arrest, but we know you're at it. So I'm thinking, right, that puts me in category 1. I said, well, did they base it on purity or volume? So you're not really sure whether how you think. I said, if it's based on purity, then that's less than a kilo because they knew we were messing with it. So I'm thinking, well, I'm going to put myself in category 2. Leading role was 9 to 13 years. That was the bracket. Starting point of 11, I think. 9 to 13. I thought, okay, so service to my country, I reckon I'll maybe get about 10 years. And I've got it in my head. I've been found guilty at this stage on remand in Bristol. I'm waiting for our sentencing, which is the June the 29th, 2012. And we get our court, they come through, off to on the 29th to get your sentencing done. So we off we went, and we're just kind of getting around trying to figure out what we're going to get. And we're sat down in the dock. I think there was 7 or 8 of us. I think all everyone's in for sentencing now. There's another trial due in August, but everyone had been done to that point and finished their trial, was sat there. And they rattled off these sentences for the people for count 1, which is the other conspiracy. And like my 2 suppliers, one of the Serbians and one of my mate from Cheltenham, got 18 years each. And I thought, Christ, that's pretty high. That's pretty heavy. Like, oh my God. And of course, you see all the families go to bits. Everyone's in tatters. Everyone's having a really bad time. And I'm thinking, it's my turn now. And he looked at me and said, oh, Mr. Jones. I said, although your operation was somewhat smaller than the previous operation. And he goes off on a few things. He said, your only real mitigation, I said, we appreciate you served in the forces as mitigation, but your only real mitigation would be to have pled guilty in the face of overwhelming odds. And I thought, I don't know what any of that means. And he said, so I'm not going to give you 15 years. And I thought, you just say 15 years? Oh no. Looked across at my wife at the time. My dad was there, my stepmom, a few mates. And they're like, I was just shocked. And I went, here we go. I thought, I'm not going to break down and have a bad time. I just thought, that's a bit heavy, isn't it? So
that must have been some realization for the family. Like,
yeah,
seeing you getting caught and in at court, it must have been like, whoa, you've been a naughty boy.
Yeah, because they're thinking 15 years. Now I'm thinking in my head, I know it's 15 years and I'm still doing it now. I don't finish till 2027. But in my head, I'm thinking, right, okay. So literally before I got from the courtroom to the holding cells downstairs, I'd already told myself, right, I've done 6 months on tag. That comes off. So 15 years, right? So I've got to do 7.5, right? 6 months off from me tag. I knew the last 2 years was going to be open conditions in a Cat D, right? That don't count. You're going home on your Cat D, because I had a mate that was doing his Cat D while I was on bail. So I saw him coming home every weekend. I thought, well, that's not prison. That doesn't. So right, the last 2 years doesn't count. So that's 5 years. Right, I've got to do 5 years. Yeah, that's the 10 I was thinking of. in my head. I thought,
Yeah.
there you go. And I justified it in my head just to cope with it initially, you know. And I sat down and everyone said, "Oh, I can't believe you got 15 years, which that's harsh." And I'm thinking, you're not helping very much, mate. You know, it is harsh, but you're not helping me.
You just got that rammed up your ass and they're saying that's no good. You don't want to hear.
I know. And everyone's saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that." Well, I haven't fucking died, mate. I'm still here. You know, I've just got to do a bit of a stretch.
Did you just spend your time in one prison, or were you shipped about? Because I've known people who have been like, they get to a certain point and they move to another one.
Yeah, you move on. So basically, when you get categorized, so that's what obviously you get back to your man prison after sentencing. You'll sit there for a few days, and what will happen? You get your like post-sentence reports come through in probation, and they'll look at categorizing you. So generally speaking, back then it probably hasn't changed much. Anything over 10 years, you're going to get Cat B because the risk is higher, you know. Or if you've got access to significant funds, you could get Cat B, which is a slightly higher security. So you're going to get a Cat B. So I went to Loudon Grange in Nottingham for the first 2 years, which was amazing for prison. I landed coming out of a dive like Bristol with cockroaches and rats and all sorts of stuff running around the floor. You get to a private prison run by Serco in Nottingham, and you walk in and it's new. It's only 14 years old then. This is 2012, opened in 98. And you look around and think, wow, and each wing has got its own yard attached to it. Each wing it's all single cells. Every cell's got like a flat screen TV. I mean, in your remand jails, the TVs are as deep as they are wide. They're the old tellies with the tube on the back, the really old crappy portables. You're talking digital tellies in the private jails plugged into the wall. We had Sky and all the digital channels. We had a phone in a cell and a shower. I feel, I've lived in much worse than this in the army. I mean, I've lived in like squalor in the army. This ain't gonna be bad at all. No, so I stayed in that kind of system. So 2 years in Loudon, and what'll happen is when you first get there, you got something called an OMU. It's an offender manager or no offender supervisor. Sorry, he'll sit down with you and talk about your sentence plan, and they'll say, right, okay, you're in for drugs. We want you to do a course on substance misuse. Said you one of your mitigation or your aggravating factors was you said you were no good with money. Said you may have turned the drugs to manage your money, and they said we want to do a course on money management. You know, so they'll present you these courses to do, and that's your sentence plan. So once you've completed that sentence plan, they lower your risk from a Cat B to a Cat C. Now, whilst you're in a hotel like Loudon Grange, all the lads are saying to you, you don't want to go to your Cat C tour. It's full of nutters. It's lively. It's loud. It's short termers. It's unsettled. You don't want to go too early. So just plot up here for a little. Don't do your courses for the first year. So I didn't do anything for the first year. I just trained. I did a little of fitness. And then the following year I did my courses in 2014. And then I got downgraded to a category C and I moved to Oakwood, which is Wolverhampton, which again is the same setup, albeit much bigger. Private jail, showers, phone, flat screen TV, all that. You know, so I got to Oakwood and I thought, all right, it's lively because it's a Cat C. It's full of people screaming and shouting and door kicking and creating a fuss. But the wing I'm on is a long-termers wing, it's lifers wing, it's really settled. And we got so many earned so many incentives on that wing, so many nice things that it was all right. We were eating steak on the evenings, mate. It was amazing. It was just like we had a cooker on the wing. We had it good. I mean, it's like Goodfellas or something. But honestly, I can't even describe what it was like because if the papers get on the stuff.
Do you think if you'd went into maybe a worse state of prison and stayed there, it would have affected your mental health going from like the army, the partying, getting to that high
it would
state?
have had. Yeah, it would have had. I think it would have affected me in different ways because the stability of Oakwood and the sort of facilities that they offer you to try and improve yourself were outstanding. So it gave me a chance to engage with things properly, like with my veteran support and everything else. There's no guarantee that any other prison would have done that. So I don't know which way I could have gone. I knew that I wasn't going to go back in drugs, but you're right, mental health is a killer. I mean, I'd suffered with PTSD, not from my military days, but from my days in organized crime, because it just takes its toll. You know, it messes you up, it destroys your head, your stress levels you run so high on stress all the time that it takes its toll. So I think had I not been to Oakwood for those 5 years and I've been somewhere else, my journey would have been very different on the other side of those gates coming out. I'm not saying I would have turned back the crime, but I don't know where I would have been. I wouldn't have had the same plans in place, or might have done, but I just don't know for sure.
Because B was saying that you and her were having a heated discussion about a coping mechanism for PTSD, and she was saying that she was telling you were wrong, but now she implements it in her job. I was like, all right. She goes, oh, if you just tell him that he was right, just tell him he was right.
Yeah, I did a thing. If she's referring to like EMDR as well, something a treatment that I took, because some people don't respond to it very well. And I don't know a guy that I met in prison. He was one of the ex-forces, and he was employed as a trauma response medic within the prison. So he used to run around the jail with a big backpack on full of first aid kit to patch people up who've been stabbed or whatever. That was his job. And we got chatting, and he said he's a mental health specialist, and he runs a charity called the Bridge Charity, and he delivers something called EMDR to veterans, or delivers to anyone, to be fair. He said, you could do a session of EMDR. I said, yeah. I said, I'm all right, man. I've got PTSD. He said, well, you never know, do you? He said, so wait till you get out of jail, and then we'll meet up. So year or so passed. I got out of jail, and last June it was, and he came round to me little house. I'm now divorced, and I've got my little pad. He said, let's do some EMDR then. And he got his magical equipment out, and it's like a sort of light bar, which he puts in front of you like a T shape. And it strobes a light left to right, like hypnosis. And he just basically watches this light, and he says a few things, and you think about your trauma. And I got various things of trauma. One of the things that traumatized me, funny enough, was, remember I set out to get me missus and the kids out of the house quickly. The thing that caused me trauma from that, and I didn't realize it, was that was the root of all my anxiety, was that phone call I had from these guys saying, we're coming around to your house to basically to kidnap you. We're coming around. And that I didn't realize how much that had messed me up at the time. So he said, how far can you remember back to a suffering with your anxiety? I said, well, before, and he didn't need to know what it was. I said, well, before that, I don't remember feeling that sense of anxiety. I had little bits of stress, but nothing like the level of stresses that hit me when I knew I was going to get kidnapped. So I kind of like thought back to that phone call. And he says, basically just repeat this trigger over and over in your head. Repeat it over. And what happened is, you're watching these lights moving left to right. It becomes less significant, and it reduces down from this like really powerful memory, which is like a disorder. And it reduces the size of it down to this little tiny nugget, which doesn't bother you anymore. It doesn't mean it's gone. It just means it's no longer an issue. And your brain then stores it properly. Trauma's gone. So literally within 40 minutes, I was fixed, and my whole life changed. Like, although I'm still suffering with hypervigilance, and you see me on TikTok sat in the car like this, I'm looking around all over the place. I can't help it. That's just me, and I don't think I'll ever change, but it doesn't govern my life anymore. Whereas before it did. If I catch something on peripherals about that, who's that? If I see a motorbike coming up behind me, I'm like that, checking. I've already got the car in gear, ready to go a different way, because I'm thinking, who is it? I still do kind of concern when a bike pulls up next to me in the car, and I'm thinking, especially if they got a passenger on the back, I'm very wary of that. You just don't know, do you?
That's the thing. Like, people do get like anxiety and stuff, but yours is, you know what I mean? That's a rational one, is it? You've been living in fear for that long. You probably do see like somebody when they walk past, are they coming for me or something? Whereas if I have anxiety and I just get it for going into Asda's in case my bag bursts or something.
Yeah, it's bad. I know the ones that I had, the worst one I suffered when I first came out of jail was I'd not really done much social media before that. I did bits, but because of my lifestyle I was involved in, I didn't really bother so much with social media, because I didn't want to be out throwing my face and who I was out in the open on Facebook and that. So a lot of it was through business, but wasn't very personal. So I wasn't really used to it. And then what I found is, when I got my first trolling, I wasn't used to it. I took it, this is before my treatment. It was a guy, I tell you what it was. I just started my local gym. I've been out of prison for probably less than a month, I think. And I left this review on social media about how happy I was at the gym. I said, "Is the gym?" I said, "Yeah, I think it's lovely." I said, "The staff are great, the facilities are great." Because bear in mind, I spent 7 years in a prison gym, which ain't quite that. It's not quite the same as this beautiful mainstream establishment. And I thought it was really nice. And then some guy just randomly made a flippant comment saying, what do you mean it's great? And I thought, who the fuck's this guy here? And I went to DEFCON 5, mate. I thought, who is he? What's his problem? I was already planning in my mind, right, when he comes round, I got to get it. I was already thinking about ringing people up. And then I thought, I'd already Googled him. I tracked him down on Instagram and all his different social media accounts. I saw him and checked all his posts out, and I thought, what's his problem? Why is he digging me out? He wasn't. He was just making a flippant comment about my review. It meant nothing to him, but to me, with my mental health, I took it as a direct threat against my safety and my family's safety, which was insane. And it was insane because it was an insane reaction on my end. And that's how I used to be. Any trolling or any derogatory comment towards me on social media, I take it as a direct threat. And it wasn't. It's people being trolls. And I couldn't have done TikTok if I hadn't had my treatment. I'd have been out of the van for the trolls by the end of the day. It's been a nightmare.
Has TikTok and social media helped you think?
Yeah, do you know what? I've learned a lot. It's helped me to ignore people which need to be ignored. And it's helped me to interact with people. And to be honest, mate, do you know what? It's quite cathartic. Speaking to people about my journey and the response I'm getting, I get a lot of positive feedback. And it helps to know that it kind of reaffirms that I'm doing the right thing. You know, if people said, oh, you get the one saying, yeah, you're scum, you should be in prison. I get that. Yeah, I know. Thank you very much. You know, cheers, mate. You know, but you get the most, 99% of people are really positive. And that's what surprised me about my account, because the subject matter should get a lot more grief than it does.
I think it's the fact that people see you've changed and you're actually wanting to better people and you're trying to help people better themselves. So see, when you're in prison, was it in prison that you came about the idea of writing the book?
Yeah, so that's before prison. So basically what I've done is leading up to prior to the trial, once I've been arrested, and I was thinking to myself, I could do a book about this. I'd always thought that there's potential with the military side of things, close protection and getting involved in drugs and everything else. I thought, there's a book in there somewhere. And I know there's a book in there. And I thought to myself, right, if I run this trial, if I get away with it, I'll walk away. I'll never get involved in drugs again. And I'll just be very thankful that I've come through this alive. You know, if I get found guilty, I will do a book, because the guilt's already out there. There's no problem. I can then shout from the rooftop. It doesn't matter. So that was it. I thought, and then I just thought, and I got found guilty. I got to do the book now. But I had no idea about the context, how it was going to be. I didn't know what I was going to write. I didn't know what kind of line I was going to go down. And I thought about various titles. And when you're inside, you've got no real influence of the outside world. You don't know what's been done already. You're just kind of hoping that what you're going to do is going to be original to a point. Even the name of it, I was sat I was in Loudon Grange, my first prison in 2014, and I was sat there, and I think I was just looking around, and I felt a little bit lost, and it just jumped in my mind, the Lost Soldier, and it just jumped in my head. That name just came in. I thought, ooh, that'd be a good title for the book. And it just started. So I wrote it down in my diary, and I've even got the diary with it in there on the date that I remembered it, because I thought, I don't know why, write it down, keep it as an idea. Then I was thinking about, right, okay, so let's think about this. So if I'm going to do a book, shall I do it one big book and have like one big mammoth thing? I thought to myself, no, what if it just completely fails and all that effort and it's a complete ball ache? I thought to myself, but what if it works out? And I thought, well, if it works out, why not break it into parts and do a series? So the plan was to do 3 parts. So the first book, the book was going to be called The Lost Soldier. That was the plan. But when I came out of jail in 2019, I Googled The Lost Soldier, found out that there were other titles that are carrying the same name. There was a film done
in
Japan or China, and there's something called The Lost Soldier, which is a book, another kind of book. And then there was a game, and I thought, I can't do that because it'll get lost within these other titles. And my agent said, so we'll think about it. It was going to be called The Lost Soldier Part 2, Charlie 4 Kilo. That's what it's going to be called. And he said, why didn't you call the book Charlie 4 Kilo? I thought, yeah, I could do it, but I thought, I want to call it a Lost Soldier. He said, well, but you're the Lost Soldier. Your character in the book is going to be the Lost Soldier. Call it Charlie 4 Kilo Part 2, and then you run it as a series. So I thought, okay. And he said, how many words, just before it even published it, he said, how many words are you on? I said, check my word count. It's about 75,000. He said, well, you don't want to do many more than 80,000 for your book, because if you go too much more than that, you're going to be like, it's too much.
Yeah.
He said, how far through it? I said, I'm about halfway. He said, well, you need to be finding a chance to finish it. And I said, what do you mean, like now? He said, well, find a point where you can finish it conveniently to pick up the next story, and then have that as part 2, as it was going to be. So instead of having a 3-part series, I got to have a 4-part series. So that's why it finishes seemingly quite abrupt. And I won't say much because I haven't read it, but it finishes seemingly quite abruptly, but it allows a cliffhanger to start part 3, which is going to be called Overseas Operations.
I think one of B's pals, Don D, asked if there was any if part 2 of Charlie 4 Kilo was actually part 1, does it have any significance?
No. So part 1 is, because part 1 is going to be a prequel. So I started part 2 because it's lively as hell. You know, it starts off with the kidnap and the trip to the woods and everything else, and it's flat out for a good few chapters, and it kind of reels you in a little bit. Yeah. So I started there because I could have started at part 1, because that part 1 is going to be literally, it's going to start with me coming out of the army, sat on the bus stop, waiting for the bus to go to the airport to fly back to England, because I just left, and that's where part 1 is going to start. So it's going to be, so the aim of part 1 is to show how I went from being someone in the army to getting involved in all these drugs. But I thought part 2's got a greater impact, because part 1's going to start off quite slow, because it's going to be quite gradual, because you're not going to be that much drugs going on. Well, what's going on there? But by the time you get past part 2 and then part 3 and then part 4 of all the build up to the arrest and everything else, you're ready to understand how it all happened. So no, part 1 is it doesn't have any, it does an ultimate, it does have a bearing on part 2, because it's the beginning of the story.
I think the first book will probably get people hooked, and then they'll see if when they get the other ones. See, if anyone's not read the book, what was your most memorable memory of everything going back, like the drugs, going into the woods and stuff like that? What's the one thing that you always play back in your mind about that time?
I'll tell you what, you remember all the bad times, all the stresses, but they become quite collective, because it's all one big stressful moment. And then sometimes you look back and you think about some of the happier times that you had when you got a bit of dosh. And I think you sit back and think, at times I was earning some stupid money and I couldn't spend it quick enough. But it's so false. It's tainted by the fact you're stressed out. But in amongst all that chaos is the birth of my 2 sons. Take away all that wildness, I've got 2 amazing boys out of that. You know, so that is my 2 favorite things about that whole era. But the whole game of being involved in drugs and everything else, it's just such a tainted experience, because you can't look at it. If I said to me, oh, it's great because I got to race cars, that would be a moment where I found out I got to race at a professional level, racing a 650 brake Evo around all the circuits in the UK. And that for me was amazing. And it's a very fond memory. And I still look back at my old YouTube channel now at the cars and the racing. I think, wow, it was such a good time. I just wish it wasn't so disrupted by the stress that I was under at the time. Had I not felt the stress, I would have enjoyed it. But at the same time, back then, I didn't care if I crashed, because if I crashed, I'd go and get another car. It didn't matter. So it allowed me to push myself so much harder. You know, I didn't care if I crashed. Not that I did, but it wouldn't matter. If I blew the engine out, I'd get another engine. You know, 10, 15 grand engines, I'll get another one. You know, it was just like that. It didn't matter.
Did you ever let your sons read the book, or did you just be totally honest with them before the book came out?
I was honest, because they were at the age where my oldest was at the age to understand where I was anyway. The youngest began to realize where I was. He was 6 when I went away. He's not stupid, and he realized, and he's dealing with his own demons because of that, although luckily things are okay now. So I was honest with them. And in fact, I'm probably too honest. I might drive past a lay-by or a building with my youngest. I used to manufacture coke up in that building. He go, oh, really? And I thought, if I can be honest with him and open with him, he'll understand my life, and he'll get to know me, because he knows I'm not doing it anymore. He knows that his dad ain't going to suddenly disappear and go to prison. He knows that his dad ain't going to get arrested. He knows his dad's there now, and he's there all the time. So I'm honest, and I'm brutally honest, and I'm probably a little bit too honest sometimes, but I think they see it with my sense of humor as well.
I take it that'll deter, obviously that'll deter them from ever even thinking about getting involved with that, seeing what's happened to you and what's put you through and what's put your family through. Eh?
Yeah, because if they know what I know, they'll know that they can't pull the wool over my eyes if they do decide to dabble. Because if they do decide to be a little bit foolish on a weekend, they'll know straight away. I'll offer them something really horrible to eat on the Saturday morning. I can't see get something to eat, but eat, mate. I'm not hungry, Dad. Come on, let's get something. Let's get you something. No, I'm really not hungry, Dad. I'll know what's going on. So,
did you? I remember seeing one of your videos and you were going on about the proceeds of crime.
Yeah.
Did you ever think that you would like the car like that would go and stuff? You would come out to nothing on.
Well, technically, the car did go. So I was fortunate because I knew how Pocket worked and I knew how the Pocket system sort of came together. So I didn't evade it. I didn't beat it. I just made sure that I played by the rules properly so that I could ensure they were satisfied. Be careful how I word this. So basically what had happened is because the garage I was running was coming through this recession, cold winter, arrests, everything was struggling. I was struggling financially. It was tough. I was paying wages. I was selling off the assets of the garage. So what I had to do is the red car behind me and the truck that I had, I needed to raise some funds, like sharpish to pay wages. So I took a loan out, a secured loan against that car and the truck. Not for much, but enough to cover the wages for a couple of weeks. So I basically didn't own those cars when the police arrested me. Although they were mine on paper, they weren't mine legally. So what happened is when the proceeds of crime came in, they listed them as assets, but they realized then they didn't belong to me. So when they produced me with a list of all these assets that I own, and it was all linked basically with about 7 or 8 vehicles, which were mine, weren't mine. Some were sold, some were even customers' cars. And a couple of the cars listed was that one there behind me and the white race car. Now, what they failed to realize when they listed these cars, the white race car during the back in 2010 and throughout the early part of 2011, I wasn't going to compete in 2011. So I started stripping down the white race car to a bare shell. We were going to redevelop it. So it was just a chassis. There was nothing. It was just literally, you could pick it up with your hand. It was that. There's nothing to it. So when they came in and saw this car's a Mitsubishi Lancer, they listed that one behind as a Mitsubishi Lancer worth 1,500 quid. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a Lancer. Yeah, of course it is. So I went with that. I didn't argue it. Yeah. And then it did the same for the white one. They saw, yeah, it's a Lancer, a Lancer 8. I thought, yeah, fine, whatever you say, mate. So they valued these cars at about 1,500 quid. The new one, the funny thing, the 8, they valued it at about $2,000, I think. So yeah, that's fine. So I argued it and I said, look, that Lancer, the white one you're referring to, it's not worth £2,000. It's worth at best 500 quid. I said, why is that? Well, because there's nothing to it. It's stripped down. So I had photographs of the car of when it was stripped down, and I produced these photographs. There's the car. That's it. That's it in my garage. When he came in, he saw the car. He checked the VIN numbers and everything else. It identifies. I said, yeah, it is true. It's stripped. There's nothing to it. I said it was going to be developed for track use. So they agreed to value it at £500. So my pocket was my realizable asset figure was £17,000, and I thought, well, that's all right. The suspension and the gearbox on the red one probably worth that anyway. It's probably worth that all day long. So I said, well, I'm not paying 17 grand because these cars, that's stripped down, that doesn't exist. I argued it and I said, look, I'll pay you 5,000. Said to me, Barry, said, look, tell them I'm paying 5 grand. I won't pay them anymore. They said they won't go to trial. I said, you'll get it down. I said, no, I'm not going to trial. I've had enough of this. Just offer him 5 grand. So we went in and he came back and said, yeah, they'll accept it. They'll take 5 grand. So for 5 grand, basically, I paid the bill. I sold off what was left of some of the assets, some bits that have been lying around, which my friends had salvaged from the garage, which are worth about 2 or 3 grand. My mum stepped in and paid the other couple of grand. Thanks, Mum. She paid that, and we paid Poker off. And then once you satisfied it, everything that's left, i.e., that is yours to keep. So I technically bought that car back off Poker for 5 grand, is how I see it. But even the white shell was I still had the white Evo shell there. I had that left, and I sold that the end of 2019 So what was left was the red one. So I did all right in the end. But that's why I got to put it to good use. That's why it's used for veterans now.
That's what I was saying. When you think it's going to be up and running for veterans then?
I hope next year, mate. I got a chap who's currently welding the manifold. So the front end, I mean, I'll lean away. You can't see because there's all holes at the minute.
Yeah.
The manifold's a tubular manifold. There's a twin wastegate set up, so it's quite big. So when it was on the race car, we designed it so that we literally brought the bumper forward, the intercoolers, everything was pinned forward by about 10, 15 mil to allow to clearance for these wastegate tubes and the bigger turbo. So what we did, we detuned it. So we put all the setup on the race car went onto the red car, but we found that we wanted to detune it to the point putting a smaller turbo on. So the guys are taking away the manifold. They're cutting off some pipes, cutting off the pipes from the down pipe for the turbo to blank them off to have a single wastegate so that we can allow for the fitment of a standard rad, because that'll be more than enough to cool it. So I've got the turbo. So once that's back, we can look at reassembling it. I've got to get a few bits to put it all together, to marry all the parts up. So once that's done, got to go off for a full service. We make it MVS Autos. They're going to do it free of charge. There's another guy from Down in Motor Parts. They're going to give me a battery for free and a few bits. A lot of people give me bits and bobs to try and get it to the point where we can then push the button and try and start it up. Got to clean it out. It's got fuel in there. It's about 10 years old. Got to flush it all out, clean the injectors. A load of stuff's got to go into it. A load of work's got to go into it. Hopefully ready for next year and next April. That's the plan. We've got an invite to Armed Forces Day in Taunton, not with the guys that we had drugs involved with, but a totally different firm from my regiment. We're going to bring that down as the Project TLS veteran support car, and we're going to hopefully unveil it then. But the aim is to get it to the local circuit maybe next April, and have it driving around. Start giving passenger rides to raise awareness for PTSD and veterans that are struggling, and taking veterans out free of charge just to see if they want to get involved in motorsport.
I hope it skyrockets, mate. It's just a great thing you're doing there, eh?
I hope so, mate. And you know what? For me, I got an itch at knees scratching this driving that car. It's been sat now for 10 years. 10 years. I tell you, last time that drove properly was just over August in Donington. That's the last time I drove it aggressively. And after that, but then you can't really see, right? I'll move that way. See the grill on the bonnet?
Yeah.
Just, oh man, I'll get this right away. There's an engine fire. There's a slight mark below where the driver's window is. There's a mark on the bonnet. I had an engine fire, and it totally burnt out the engine bay. So I had to redo all the loom and everything. So since then, it's never run. It's run. It was mapped, but the turbo had it's been sat now for 10 years. 10 years I've been starting.
If you're going to do that mentorship, then
say again, mate.
When you think of doing that mentorship,
we're currently looking at now. So Hereford and Worcester youth offending team.
Yeah.
Just cutting through the red tape, because I'm an ex-offender and it's all about risk and DBS checks. So when they've gone through all that, I'm looking at volunteering my time. It's going to be occasional, maybe every other Saturday, maybe once a month. We don't quite know yet. To go and sit with a group of lads and girls as well, who are between the age of, I think, 13 and 19, or 13 and 18, I think. I'm just going to sit down with them, tell them about the difficulties about being involved in crime. But it's not just that. It's showing us something about how to enjoy their lives. Could do some cooking with them. So I'm quite a keen cook. I'm showing them how to make fresh burgers, make some fresh pizzas, do some fried chicken, take them out for a day. I've got a friend who's linked with the World of Tanks, and I can get them down to Bovington, take them out on the ranges to watch the tanks firing for a day. Just little things like that. Just get them out, show them a bit of life, give them an incentive to say that this is sort of things you can do if you have some sort of normality in life. Don't get involved in crime. Stay away from the gangs. So hopefully that'll be happening soon, mate. Fingers crossed.
That's great, man. It seems like you're so busy. How do you manage to keep yourself grounded if you're that? You must be constantly thinking and doing stuff.
With great difficulty, mate, because I've got a day job as well, doing removals. So that's time consuming. That's like 40 hours a week doing that as well. So what I'm finding myself, once TikTok, it levels off, doesn't it? You get these mad rushes every now and again, then it calms down. It's just hard work, mate. But I get bored. I don't really watch telly. I'm not a gamer anymore. I don't get involved in anything. I just work, and I come home and I work some more. And seeing my kids is nice. I've got my girlfriend down in London. I spend time with her as often as I can. And I think when I go down to London and see my missus, that's the time that I'm actually grounded.
Yeah.
I can actually relax for a few days, and that's nice. I come off TikTok for a few days. I don't do nothing, and it is quite pleasant, you know. And that's the nice thing about it. But I'm looking at starting a podcast next year. I'm going to jump on board and be a podcaster, you know. So I've got to get that set up first. That's going to be, but I can't do that until I've got funding through for my course that I've written for veterans in custody. Once the course takes off, and that happens, I've then got more time on my hands. I don't have to do removals anymore. I can step away from that.
Yeah.
I can focus on, because the course will be producing income for me, and it won't be as time consuming. So I think I'll have time then to do podcasts, do more social media, keep writing books, continue recording the audio book, which is taking forever. I'm also a presenter on National Prison Radio. I got a contract delivering as a presenter on there. You know, I got 10 shows contracted for potentially for 30, and that's talking to veterans who've been inside and have turned their lives around. So I'm doing that now. I was doing that last night at 6 o'clock. You know, so from a little makeshift studio in here. So I'm flat out, mate. I just need something needs to land, which is going to pay me a wage where I can actually think, all right, I'm earning enough doing that to focus on the public life, the publicity, if you like.
See, when you're writing a book, though, does the publisher constantly say to you, you need to get this finished, you need to get it finished, you need to get it finished, come on, do they give you deadlines and push you?
No, there's no contract like that. I think if you signed a publishing deal with someone, they said, right, we'll need to produce X amount of books and audio books in a given time, they'd have to give you a retainer, so you don't have to work. If someone said to me, we're gonna jump on board with you, we're gonna give you a retainer, you don't have to work, or you can come away from work, say 2 days a week. We'll pay you 300 quid a week, say, and you can then focus on your book. And they would then be entitled to say, well, we want this done by then.
Yeah.
My first book, or C4K, took me a year to write that. But that, to be fair, the main bulk of that got written whilst I was in prison on day release. I had access to a laptop, so I just sat there for hours on end, just talking to visitors coming into the prison. I just sat there and thought I'll start writing my book, which I did. I think I nailed 9 chapters while I was in prison. It's only 14, so I came out and then I stopped writing it at the beginning of 2019 because I was coming out of jail July, so I didn't do any writing between January and July 2019 because I just couldn't. I was focusing on being a free man. I was too busy in my head. And then I started writing it again once we went into lockdown. I was trying to do bits and bobs. When lockdown came in, I got a publisher, an agent. So really not in the case, although I've got to write another 3 books and record audible versions of them, there's no pressure. But yeah, if they put down a retainer and say, look, we're investing some money into you for this, then that'd be different. I think they'd say, right, get your ass in gear, mate. You got to better start writing. But it's hard because sometimes I never knew what writer's block was till I had it. And I could do a chapter. Chapter 9, for example, is a really good chapter. And I really enjoyed writing because I really enjoyed that particular chapter because it was just flat out. It was crazy about Alfie, the guy in there. And he's just nuts. Chapter 10 was a right ball ache. It took me a month to write chapter 10. It was horrible. And the same with 11. And I thought, this is killing me. And then I got to a different one and I thought, oh, this is flowing again now. I found that environment where you're in is important. Headspace is such a big factor of where you are in your head to get creative and sometimes feel the emotion of the book. I've been sat there writing a book and I did the last chapter, which is quite traumatic for me. And I wrote that and I was in tears, mate. I was actually in floods of tears because first time I recalled it.
Didn't say that, so get me. I've just started it, and I've got an attention span of a goldfish, so I'm trying to read it on that Kindle, but I can't wait to get the book so I can actually go back. Because on Kindle, you're trying to read it, and you're like,
yeah, I'm the same, mate. If I read a book, I read the same page 3 times, not really. I've read it 3 times. I keep reading the same paragraph. I'm useless. I'm terrible at reading books. I'm shy.
But it's been great having you on, man. I can't believe mate. I can't even believe you agreed to come on.
Oh, mate, it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it because, like, as with this mad world of TikTok, it's just kind of nice to see things in different perspective, isn't it? You know, have a proper chat.
And I was wanting to make it. I wasn't want to make it like because I watched John James English's podcast and I think I was like, no, what you've probably repeated yourself, and I must get to a point where you're like, I'm fucking sick of saying that same thing. Eh?
Totally different, mate. But with you, it's been just like a casual chat down the pub, hasn't it? And it's been really good. It's just a chat, and I've enjoyed it because you've hit on so many different angles that no one else has by not having an agenda.
Yeah.
And that's a fucking good way to go forward.
I'm just trying to do it. Like I've said when I was on the Ticking Over one, I was like, I don't want to go out there and research or anything like that and blow smoke up people's asses. I said, I want to be genuine. So if somebody was watching this, they would see you and they'd be like, oh, that book, I'm going to go and get that book. Yeah. Whereas I feel like if we went on about the book a lot, what would be the point in them going and buying it?
Yeah, that's it. Let them make up their own mind, isn't it? You know, that's the best way.
The cracking book, I don't know. My only ever books I've read was Johnny Cash, Bruce Springsteen, and Paul Weller.
Mine was like Playboy and Mayfair when I was young. Doesn't count.
But thank you for coming on, though, mate.
Pleasure, mate.
I can't wait to hear you on your podcast.
Yeah. Some point next year. I've got the name. I know what it's going to be called and everything else. I've got some different ideas about how to do it as well. I'm gonna try and do something different.
And then let us know once you get the car up and running. I'll sponsor one or 2 days. I'll bung in a couple of donations and sponsor a couple of the track days.
Oh, mate, I'll get it up to Knock Hill for you. We'll get it on the back of the trailer and bring it up to Knock Hill.
I'm a wee fan now. I can't. My mate's got an Audi S3 S line. Is it RS 3?
Yeah.
And he's driving. I'm like, fucking slow down. And imagine you'd be a lot better driver.
Mate, you know I'm a terrible passenger. When I'm driving, I've got a switch in my head. When I get on the track, something switches and I change completely. I become not aggressive, but it's hard to explain. I'm not me. I'm not the placid, that mild-mannered, placid me goes out the window. When I'm not on the track, mate, I turn into an absolute animal, but controlled. Yeah. I mean, not dangerous, but I've done a lot of passenger rides in the past around a lot of different circuits. And we had one guy, we were doing this thing. In fact, it was just before I got arrested, April 2011. We're doing these passenger rides. And I was in that one, in the red one. And we're bombing around and I can only give it, if I got a passenger, give it a 70%. I can't really go too nuts because I've got to think about someone's life and their safety. And we were bombing around this track. And then what happened is they had a company called Red Brick Racing, a chap I used to race against, bought 3 British touring cars, the old Honda Civics. Remember the old Halfords livery, the orange ones with the black writing? He bought those and they're out there giving passenger rides as well. And I pulled out and there was this touring car just in front of me. I thought, you're having it, mate. And I had this poor passenger sat next to me and I was giving it 100%. And I took the touring car, I took him on the straight and I stayed ahead of him and I got away. And the guy said to me, I said, I do apologize. He said, no, that was amazing. So I've never experienced that before. He said, I could see that initially when you started off, you weren't going that mad. But when you saw that touring car, because the touring car went past me, he said, when that went past, he said, I saw something change in you. And he said he didn't know what to do, whether to say something or just keep quiet. He said the difference on the late braking and literally I'm approaching sharp corners on Castle Coombe. There's a dodgy bend called Avon Rise. If you don't brake at a certain point, you're in trouble in it, but you can brake at a later point if you've got the right angle and the weight on the car. He said, normally people are braking. I said, I'm still gunning it towards a corner. Everyone else is slowing down. He said, are you going past there? And then I'm on the brakes last minute. So yeah, he said so much changes. So I can't wait to get back in it again. I can't wait.
When you're up, mate, he's a shot when I'll come and meet you. And like you said, I'll sponsor 2 of your days for your...
Mate, that'd be amazing. Yeah, definitely. I'll stay in touch and we'll see you on the TikTok when we get unbanned in a few days.
I'll just click on the record button, bud. So